Good morning. Glad to have you here with us. Let's jump right in. Spokane Mayor Nadine Woodward just released a preliminary draft of next year's budget. Now, the priorities listed include public safety, homelessness, housing, and economic development.
So Mayor Woodward joined us over on CRIM 2 for a live interview just moments ago, and she's joining us again right now. So good morning, Mayor Woodward. We really appreciate you for joining us this morning. So let's go ahead and get right back into our conversation. The last thing that you were talking about was a proposed new homeless shelter for people between the ages of, say, 18 and 25. Can you talk to us a little bit more about why this shelter is so needed in our community?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show this morning. The young adults homeless shelter would be operated by Volunteers of America. It's something we've been working on now for just a little more than a year at the regional table. So now we're talking about how do we address homelessness as a region, not just a city. I've always believed that homelessness is not just a city of Spokane issue, it's a regional issue, and we do serve a lot of the homeless from throughout the region here in the city. So one of the gaps that we identified pretty early on was that young adults, 18 to 24 years old, these are young people, many of them aging out of foster care or who find themselves after graduating from high school homeless for whatever reason. But if we can work upstream and connect them to services, if we can stabilize them, get them continuing education, even technical training, then we can prevent the next generation of homelessness. And that's a gap that we've had, that many cities have, that has been identified to really make a difference in how we address this issue.
So Mayor Woodward, you'll be releasing this preliminary budget. I want to talk about where we are in terms of the budget with the pandemic. Now, the forecast revenue for the general fund is it's increasing by about 6% almost from the projected 2021 revenue, but it's still 5.3 million short of pre-COVID numbers. Can you talk about where areas are really tight right now in the budget, and how is your administration working around those numbers?
Well, you know, the budget is a living document, so it's fluid, it changes all the time, and trying to make those projections, as you mentioned, especially for revenue, is very, very tricky, because I think our financial future is still quite uncertain. I thoroughly believe that we are going to be in economic recovery because of the pandemic for years to come. But we have seen upticks in other areas that fund our general budget, the general fund of the budget, which is property tax revenue, which with our housing market, we've seen values increase exponentially and home sales on fire. And so we have seen an uptick in revenues because of that. But then we've seen other revenues fall short that fund the general fund, and the sales tax revenue, because we haven't had the events that we would normally have. We haven't had the tourism, the convention business, just people out spending money at our restaurants and entertainment venues. So it's you know, revenue goes up in one area, it goes down in another area, and then trying to predict with this uncertain future that we have, or world that we're living in right now because of the pandemic, makes it very, very hard. So we have to be flexible when we address these things.
Now, another thing that's mentioned here in your budget is organizational investments in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can you tell us a little bit more about your plans to make sure that we stay diverse and a diverse community and it's reflected in your mayoral staff?
Absolutely. That's very important, Shannon. Thank you for bringing that up. We did hire this year a civil rights officer. So that person, which we're absolutely so thrilled to have on board, it's Jarrell Haynes, who has served on the Spokane School Board, and he will be looking at issues of housing discrimination and making connecting people to services when they have complaints. So that was a priority of mine. This other priority, this position that would involve the diversity, equity, and inclusion, would do a lot of outreach within the community. We have 200 positions right now at City Hall, and we need to do a better job of reaching people where they are to let them know about these positions, help them apply for these positions. And so we need to change the diversity of the employees, the more than 2,000 employees who provide great services for our city. But we need to do a better job of bringing people in and offering those opportunities to people from all communities of color in our city.